Alright, Shalom, back out here again for the third time on the highways and hedges, the Chief Defensive Concourse at round 3 through the Spirit Power, Grace and Mercy, Hawaii of Shah. With that, I'd like to give all praise and glory and honor to. Heavenly Father, your name is Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Bahashem, and David Mashiach Yahshua. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo Hebrew, the Lashwan Gospel tongue. Now say Barak Thumb to the elders and apostles for Akim Akrof, and I say Shalom. So once again, out here for the third time on the highways and hedges of this concourse on this June 2nd, and with brothers here in Chicago say it's June. It is June, you know. And Proverbs 6 and verse 18, and we're living in the modern days of Sodom and Gomorrah. And with that Proverbs 6 and verse 18, probably go for destruction house before law. So you know I just want to add a side note to that. So yeah, out here once again on the highways and hedges, the Chief Lesson Concourse on this Monday, June the 2nd, 2025, on this Monday afternoon. As always, thank you Heavenly Father, Yahweh, His only begotten Son, Mashiach Yahshua. As always, for giving us the opportunity to come out and do so, lifting up the names of the Heavenly Father, Yahweh, and His only begotten Son, Mashiach Yahshua. And the Wadi Yahweh Yahshua, as always, for a campus about the Holy English, in the Spirit Power, Grace and Mercy, Hawaii Yahshua, and the Wadi Yahweh Yahshua. And once again, we're walking from to the elders and apostles for Akrof, and I say Shalom. And this is Jeremiah. Yep, this is Jeremiah chapter 28. Yep, this is Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 8. It says, Jeremiah 28, verse 8. It says, the prophets that have before thee and before thee of old prophesied both against many countries and great kingdoms of war, evil, and investors. Right, so the prophets was before thee and before thee of old in the ancient times. Now it's once again in modern times. So we're out here on the highways and hedges, the Chief Lesson Concourse, you know, prophesying against great countries and great kingdoms of war, evil, and investors. That's what we see. Jeremiah chapter 28, verse 9. It says the prophet was prophesied of peace, when the word of the prophet shall come to pass. Then shall the prophet be known that Yahweh has surely sent him. Right, these prophecies is going to come to pass and fulfilled. Just like it was in ancient times, now they're going to start once again in modern times. And this is Ezekiel chapter 33 and verse 33. You have to book of Ezekiel chapter 33 and verse 33 to read. It says, and when this cometh to pass, lo, it will come. Then shall they know that a prophet has been among them. Right, so once all these prophecies come to pass be fulfilled, that we're prophesying about, war, evil, and a pestilence, and the prophecies come to pass be fulfilled, and then should they know that a prophet was among them. Just like it was in Jeremiah in the days of old, the prophets of old, and Ezekiel during his times, prophecies came to pass, then they shall know as a prophet was among them. Just like it was during those times, now we're seeing once again in modern times. And this is Jeremiah. Yeah, this is Jeremiah chapter 51. Yeah, Jeremiah chapter 51, verse 46, and it reads, it says, and these shall heart faint, be fear for the woman that shall hurt in the land. And a woman shall come both 1 year, after that, but another year shall come a woman in the land, while this land rule its rule. Right, so that's what we're seeing, rumors after rumors, throughout the years. It's like we're seeing it in newer times, you know, like it says in Matthew 24th chapter. There should be seeing wars and rumors of wars, nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom. And it's like these are the modern days of Jeremiah. You know, ruler against ruler. We're seeing modern day ruler against modern day ruler, just like it was in the days of Jeremiah. We're seeing it once again these modern times. Because you know, there's no new thing under the sun. So continuing on. This is Isaiah chapter 13 and verse 17. Yeah, this is the prophet Isaiah chapter 13 verse 17. It says, right, Babylon will fall to Medes. We see it signs up there. This is Isaiah chapter 13 verse 17. It says, behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which they not forgot. It says, I will stir up the Medes against them, which they should not regard silver, and as for gold, they should not buy in. Right, so the Heavenly Father is going to stir up the Medes, put that warlike mindset on these Russians, like it says Ezekiel 30 verse 4. They're going to be going against modern Babylon. That's why we're seeing tensions are rising between the United States and Russia. And that's going to continue to increase. So we're seeing signs of that. So the Heavenly Father is going to put the spirit of the Medes, which is Russia against Babylon, just like he did in ancient times. We're going to see it once again in modern times. And this is the prophet Isaiah. This is the prophet Isaiah chapter 17. It says, the right, so taking place over there in Syria, that's a war zone. That's a war zone area. That's a hot zone area, which we've been seeing throughout the years, throughout previous times and the modern times as well too. So, despite the fact they're trying to rebuild over there in Syria, they got new leadership over there. I believe it's that makes perfect sense as well too. I think like a couple of days ago, I believe that news article caught my attention. You had these, because the president, he used to be the new president over there in Syria. He used to be part of Al Qaeda of the Islamic State, if I'm not mistaken. I've been hearing about that. That kind of surprised me because I believe the brothers, the elders were arguing. They were speaking about that previously. I mentioned it. Hey, what's the whole saying? You learn something new, and so that's only gonna, despite that I mentioned it because I didn't know that. You learn something new every day at the Wadi Habash Mashah. But you had these, I believe you had some type of rebel groups over there in Syria. I believe they threatened the president over there in that area. So that's why you've been seeing throughout the generations and all in these modern times, you've been having proxy wars with these nations over there in Syria. Just like we seen that last year, because you had the president of Assad, his regime had failed because he had to go to Russia. But you're still going to have proxy wars and seditions over there in that area. So that shows you there's still going to be a hot zone area over there in the area, despite the fact they're trying to rebuild over there. They've been having these leaders that have went to go see the president trying to rebuild over there in Syria. But this is a future prophecy of Isaiah 17 verse 1 of Damascus of Syria should be taken away from being the city. But you're still going to have the Israel Defense Force using airstrikes over there, targeting the pro-Iranian groups, targeting the Russian armies, targeting the Syrian armies, targeting the pro-Iranian groups, the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. They still stationed over there. They got military bases over there in the area. So that's only going to show more intensity between the Israel Defense Force. They're going against the Russian armies, the Syrian armies, the pro-Iranian groups throughout that whole area. So that's only going to increase the building up to the Third World War. So this is a future prophecy of Isaiah 17 verse 1. It says, Isaiah 17 verse 1, it says, the burden of Damascus, behold, Damascus is taken away from being a city, and it shall be its ruined heap. But you're still going to have riots and tensions over there in Syria throughout that whole area. The southwestern part of Syria, the southeastern part of Syria, over there, Aleppo, Syria, and different parts over there in Syria, near Damascus, and over there in Damascus as well too. That's why Damascus should be, it says the burden of Damascus should be taken away from being a city, and it should be as ruined heap. And this is a future prophecy. It's about to come past fulfilled. And this is the book of Matthew, the 24th chapter. Matter of fact, Ezekiel, Salakia. And this is the prophet Ezekiel, chapter 38, and verse 4. I'm going to start at verse 1. And this is the book of Ezekiel, chapter 38, verse 1. It says, and the word of Yahweh came unto me, saying, Ezekiel 30, verse 2, it says, son of man, set thy face against God, and Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him. Right, so we're prophesying against God and Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, which represents the bear of the Russians. Ezekiel chapter 38 and verse 2, it says, son of man, set thy face against God and Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and prophesy against him. That's what we're doing in modern times, just like our forefathers did. Hey, so there's no new thing under the sun. And this is Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 3. It says, thus saith Yahweh thy power, behold, I am against thee, O God, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, right to this day. Ezekiel chapter 30 verse 4. It says, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thy army, horse and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even great cups and buckled shields, and all of them hidden swords. And this is the book of Ezekiel chapter 30 verse 5. It says, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, all of them should have him. Right, so Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, all of them should have him. You see the sentence like that? Because that makes perfect sense. Because that makes perfect sense because we see Iran versus Israel, that's going to continue to heat up, despite the fact they're trying to have a nuclear deal. But you had the United States, they're really desperate. And now it's a news article that came out, a new news article as of today. They're willing to have the nuclear enrichment as part of the deal. But keep this in mind, you had Iran saying that they don't want that deal to be part of it. So you're still going to have tensions between Iran versus Israel. You're still going to have Iran versus the Israel Defense Force. You're still going to have tensions up there. So, and these are the same nations that Russia is going to be involved into. Iran and Turkey. This is Ezekiel chapter 38 verse 5. It says, Persia, Ethiopia, Libya, Russia and Iran from a financial perspective to overthrow the American dollar and not trust it. That shows you that you're going to have the tension between China and Russia, Iran, North Korea, the alliance. Nations that Russia is going to be allies with, continuously, economic perspective and a military perspective, going against the Israel Defense Force and their allies. So that's why you've been having the Turkish armies recently been calling out the Israel Defense Force because of their rude behavior. They continue to use those heavy airstrikes against the Israel Defense Force. So we're going to be seeing more signs of that. So that's why you've been having the Russian armies, the Syrian armies, the Turkish armies, the pro-Iranian groups, even the Dragons of Arabia. They calling out the Israel Defense Force. That's on the historical tension between these nations. That's teaming up together going against the Israel Defense Force. And that's only going to get into the Third World War. It's because you still got military bases and operations from the Turkish armies over in Iraq and Syria. This is Ezekiel chapter 30, verse 7. It says, "Be thou prepared for thyself and all thy companies. There are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them." Right, so the heavy fathers, so the heavy fathers are going to put the spirit on these Russian places to have them be a guard to the stations of Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, and Turkey. And you're still going to have Russia that warlike mindset. You're still going to have this you're still going to have Russia versus Ukraine that's going to continue to heat up. And you're still going to have Russia versus NATO, Russia versus EU, Russia versus UK. Because you had a news article from RT.com. The Prime Minister, he was telling the UK armies to prepare for war. And that's that Joel Greenberg saying. And, plain deed this among the Gentiles prepare war, wake up the mighty. And that's only going to lead up to the Third World War. So we are in those times. That's why we're out here prophesying about war, evil, and pestilence. That's why we're seeing the wars and rumors of wars, and nation against nation, kingdom against kingdom is increasing. And this is what we have to prophesy about. In the pushing of the Third World War, which is going to come to pass and be fulfilled. Ezekiel chapter 30, verse 7. It says, "Be thou prepared, prepare for thyself and all thy companies that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them." Right, so Russia is going to be a guard to these nations, Iran, Ethiopia, Libya, and Turkey, going against the Israel Defense Force up there in the Middle East. And this is Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 1. It says, "Therefore thou sayest, it says, prophesy against God, and say, listen, it says, Israel, by the chief of shall timber." Ezekiel 39, verse 2. It says, "I will turn thee back and leave like the sixth part of thee, and I will cause to come up from the north parts, and will bring them upon the house of Israel." And this is Ezekiel chapter 39, verse 3. It says, "I will smite thy bow out of left hand, and I will cause thy arrows upon thy right hand. Wadi Hashem Shah." Yep, Matthew, the 24th chapter. And this is the book of Matthew, chapter 24. Yep, Matthew 24, verse 6. See how much percentage I got left. Salakia. All 4%, still good. This is the book of Matthew, chapter 24, verse 6. It says, "Ye shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. See that ye be not troubled, for all these things must first come to pass, but the end is not yet." Right, so these wars and rumors of wars is going to come to pass, but they're not going to end yet. So we're not going to be troubled with these things because it's going to continue to increase. It's going to come to pass, but they're not going to end yet. So we're going to see the moderate increase of these wars and rumors of wars. We're seeing an increase. We're seeing all these armies of nations are in that warlike mindset. And just like the alliance between China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, despite the fact that the United States is trying to push Iran more to this nuclear agreement. Even they even offer for them to have a enrichment agreement. So even if that deal goes through, that's still going to be leverage. That's still going to be leverage for Iran to be able to go pay against the United States, against Israel Defense Force, and Wadi Hashem Shah. So these are signs of wars, rumors of wars that we're seeing increasing. Iran versus Israel, the whole Iranian group going against the Israel Defense Force. Tensions are heating up over there in the Red Sea. You have the Houthi rebels continue to use airstrikes against those Israel Defense Force. You still have the Israel Defense Force using airstrikes against the Houthi rebels, which is a pro-Iranian group. You're still going to see China versus Taiwan, that's heating up. You're going to see China versus the Philippines, that's heating up. You're going to see China versus the United States, that's heating up. From an economical war perspective, from a trade war perspective, and a nuclear war perspective. So these are signs of modern day wars, rumors of wars. You're still going to have the Russian-Ukraine situation heating up. You're still going to have Russia versus NATO, Russia versus the European Union, because they use economic sanctions against them. You have Ukraine building up their nuclear capability. You have UK, they're building up their nuclear capability. So we're seeing all these nations building up their nuclear capability against one another. They're going to be guided over there in the Middle East, West Asia, the Valley of Joseph. So we're seeing that in progress. Despite the fact that you're trying to have these modern day leaders of nuclear powers and nuclear nations trying to de-escalate tensions that they have against one another, which has been going on back and forth. I see the brand of integration once again. It's like how Shah spoke about nation against nation, the kingdom against kingdom. That's what we're seeing. And all this is going to culminate to building up to the Third World War. We're seeing an increase. And this is Matthew 24%. For nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. Yeah, it says for nation shall rise against nation and kingdom against kingdom. And there should be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places. Right, there should be famines and pestilence and earthquakes in diverse places, which we'll see. You're going to see more signs of it. So all this is building up to the Third World War. And this is check my connection one more time. I'm bring up these two more scriptures that I've closed out. This is the prophet Joel, chapter 3, verse 9. It says, "But then eat this among the Gentiles who give war. Wake up the mighty man, that all men of war draw near, let them come up." Right, so this is continually being proclaimed among the Gentiles and arms of nations. And Heavenly Father put the spirit on these arms of nations, preparing them for war, and they still won't never. So we still going to have rising tensions over there in the Western Asia, or that over, and all these different capabilities. Out here for the third time on the highways at the cheapest concourse on this June the 2nd, 2025. It's you. With that, I would like to give all praises and glory now to and the Heavenly Father, the true name is Yahweh, and His unbegotten Son, by Hashem, and the name of Mashiach Kapashah. Those are the true names in the ancient Paleo-Hebrew, the last Wakadash on the tongue. And I say Barakatham to the elders and apostles from Hakim and Akwaf. Until next time, I will say, Kwame Asherala, and the Bible Ball, Shalom.